Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about Bitcoin wallets, what is a digital wallet and exactly how it works, and how Bitcoin works compared to fiat money, which is basically our Federal Reserve and how it works. So to get started, let's talk a little bit about the Federal Reserve. So the Federal Reserve, the best way to think about this is, let's say that this is the very first day that we are going to get started in the Federal Reserve. Now, one thing to note is the Federal Reserve is not actually it's not part of the federal government. In fact, it has absolutely nothing to do with the United States federal government. What happened is, at some point, our politicians decided that they wanted to make more, or they wanted to spend more money than they could possibly make in a year, because back in the day we were based on something called the gold standard. Now what that meant is that every dollar bill that got printed had to be backed by an appropriate amount of gold. And so what it did is it limited the amount of money that could be printed at any one time, because the federal government would have to somehow purchase or acquire an equal amount of gold to back up those dollars. But it made the dollar extremely stable because it was based on something finite. In other words, they couldn't just go print a bunch of paper and call it money. Now, it's interesting that in the past in this country, there were two other attempts, I think two, maybe three, but I know two. There were two other attempts to do this, where the politicians wanted to hook up with these bankers, these wealthy people, have them print money for the government, and then the government give them promissory notes in return to pay back later. The problem is in both of the earlier attempts, they failed because the money that they were printing, they ended up printing so much money that it became worthless. And so the entire economy inside of the United States completely crashed, because the paper that they were printing eventually just became completely useless, and toilet paper was more expensive than the money that you were using to buy the toilet paper. So this went on for years, and around 1913 they decided that there was something, they had a better idea. And the better idea was, again, to create this bank that was going to create monopoly money. The government would again give them a promissory note, but we need to show a problem here real quick before we go any farther. And so let's say that you're standing here and you're the politician, and you've got your hand out, and I am the bank, and I'm going to print you a dollar bill. So we've got your dollar bill here, and we're going to give it to you for a loan. This is all really cool, but in return, you're the federal government, the politicians, you're going to give me back a promissory note. And this note is going to say that in the next 5 years, we'll just keep everything simple. In the next 5 years, the government is going to pay you back, pay the bank back the dollar that they borrowed plus an appropriate amount of interest, whatever they agreed to. So that was the agreement. All is good. The problem is that at this point, we have the exact same scenario that we had earlier with the other two attempts. So we have to figure out how to do this. And here's the problem. Everybody has heard the politicians running around screaming about, the debt ceiling, and that they have to increase the debt ceiling. Well, the reason that you have to increase the debt ceiling, and you will always have to increase it, you're not going to decrease it, is that when the bank loans the government that $1 bill, and the government agrees to pay them back an appropriate amount of interest, where is the interest? Like, in other words, the dollar bill exists because the bank printed it, but in order for the government to give the dollar bill back to the bank, they would take the original dollar bill and hand it back to the bank, and then there would be no more dollar bills, which essentially means that if everybody in this country and everybody in the world were to pay off all of their debt, then there would be no more dollar bills, because there would be nothing, nobody would have a dollar because you've paid off all of the debt that you have. So the problem here is that this interest doesn't exist. There is no second dollar bill because the bank never printed it. They only printed the $1 bill to give to the person or to give to the government to give back to them later. So in order for the government to give them back more money, they actually have to print even more money than the original loan and give the politicians that money as well, so that they can then turn around and give it back to the bank. So it's all this really complicated screwball thing that they came up with. The problem is the politicians don't have any money, and they've given up the right to print money by making this agreement with this bank. And so there's no way for them to make this payment back. And so in comes their second plan, which is to take all of us, all of the little citizens that are out here working themselves to death, to take us, group us together, call us a corporation, because it's the only way that they could trick us into actually paying for this tax, and then take money out of our income, which we don't actually make, and give it to the bank. So now the bank is guaranteed that they're going to get their interest payments because it's coming out of our paychecks every day. And so what you end up with is this very complicated and deceiving plan, which, by the way, is completely unconstitutional. But they come up with this big complicated plan in order for the bank to always be prosperous and us to always get screwed. And the reason is because the bank controls all of the money. And because they control the money, they control the politicians. And because they control the politicians, they control the entire government. So this is the problem that we have with the current system, and the problem that the bank is actually the one that's in control. Now, the bank has recently started coming up with this idea that they are going to remove the dollar bill, and we're going to actually start using a digital current, which is basically what Bitcoin is. So instead of actually having money, we are going to just start saying it's all digital, and you'll have a digital wallet on your phone, and you'll, wherever, and you'll be able to transact with that, and you'll never actually have any paper cash anymore. The problem is that if anybody talks about this with you and tells you how good it is, you should fight it tooth and nail, because it is the biggest screw job that it will ever be done to this country. In fact, I'll argue that if we get to that point, the United States government, or the United States as a country, will be done. That to me is the death peg that is going to go into our coffin. So fight that. But here's the problem. The problem is that every time one of us takes money out or we pay for something, this bank is creating a ledger that they are writing down all of the different things. Glenn bought this and this bought that. And so they're the ones that are maintaining this ledger. And the problem with this is that it gives them all the control. They have control of everything, and no one is going to be able to take the control back, because they're the only ones that know who owns what, who has what house, who has what loan, how much money do I owe on the loan, how much money do I make, how much money is in my bank. All of this stuff is maintained by the banking system, by the Federal Reserve, and therefore they're the ones in control of everything. So let's take a look now at what happens when Bitcoin, or a blockchain, what exactly is a blockchain, and how is it different than what the Federal Reserve has tricked us all into believing is the way that money is supposed to work. So here's what happens. That ledger that we were talking about that the Federal Reserve, or the banking system, maintains is an extremely powerful part of their control. And so what a blockchain is instead of having the Federal Reserve, so here we'll say Federal Reserve, instead of them maintaining their ledger, what we're going to do instead is we're going to create millions, and this is no exaggeration, there are millions of computers all over the world that talk to each other and maintain this ledger. And so what that means is there's no specific person that or company that's in charge of the ledger. You could come into the U.S. Let's say that this is all of the computers that are in the U.S. You could come to the U.S. and wipe out the entire system and say that it's illegal, but everybody would still be able to work on BitChain because all of these other countries, people in all these other countries, are still maintaining that ledger. So the ledger itself is what they're really referring to when you hear the word blockchain. It's a way to distribute this ledger and not have anybody in control of it. Now, to get into how this blockchain works is very, very complicated, and it's very mathematical. But essentially what happens is that if I'm a person up here and I do a transaction, we're going to get into that next, but I do a transaction and I say I want to transfer $10 or 10 Bitcoins. We'll get rid of the concept of a dollar because it really doesn't apply here. We're just going to say that I want to transfer 10 of something, whatever this currency is, in this case Bitcoin. I want to transfer it over to Cindy over here, and she has some messed up hair. We're going to transfer $10 over to Cindy, and we're going to go from my wallet to her wallet. Now, I'm going to get into the wallet thing in just a second. But what happens is that I don't transfer it directly to her. I make a note into this network, into this chain, and I tell the system that, hey, I have $10 in my wallet, and I want to, or 10 whatever Bitcoins in my wallet, and I want to transfer it over to Cindy. So what happens now is that this distributed ledger, these systems start to communicate with each other and say that, the wallet ID that Glenn gave us is a valid ID. It does have 10 Bitcoin in it. And Cindy has a valid wallet ID because it's been registered on this network. And we want to transfer this money from there to Cindy. So what happens is, instead of one computer making the decision, this computer ends up talking to this computer, which ends up talking to this computer, and then they get a consensus between the lot of them that says yes or no, whether this is a valid transaction and whether the network of ledgers are going to accept this as a valid transaction that just took place. Now, once they accept that into the ledger, there's no way to undo it. You don't go back into the ledger and tell it that transaction was void and we're going to just undo it. So it is very restrictive as to when something's done, how it's done, what the parties were in between, the amount of money, and you can't hack it. And the reason you can't hack it is because you would end up having to hack every single system that is acting like part of this ledger. And so again, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details of this because we're trying to keep this very basic, but all of these computers are communicating with each other. And so for you to hack any one of them, the rest of the network is going to call bullshit on you, and it's not going to accept the transaction. So it is essential that the entire network agrees that is a valid transaction, and that this network is all distributing these transactions across the entire network, so that if any one or two or 50 or 1,000 of them goes down, there are still an equal number of systems that are still up that are still maintaining that ledger. And so it's a very secure system for managing money. So that's blockchain. That's basically what's happening when we're going through the blockchain and talking about what's going on. So now let's talk a little bit about these wallets and how this information is actually transferred, because it's a little bit overwhelming if you're new to this and you're thinking, okay, well, I got to have a wallet. What is a wallet exactly, and how does it work over the process of this network? So let's just think about this. First off, there's a couple different types of wallets. Well, there's a lot. You can have a wallet that is on a reserve or on a website, a company that maintains it for you. It's online, and I'm going to go buy, and you're going to have this when you buy the Bitcoin. So I use a company that I buy all of my digital media from, and I go to their system and I say I want to transfer this much USD over to your system so that I can then purchase an amount of Bitcoin. Well, when I do that, the bank moves my U.S. currency into their bank, and then they have a wallet. And so what exactly is a wallet? It's on their line, online specifically for me, but they register this wallet. And think about it as a piece of software that is running on their system at this point, and it goes out and registers itself on the Bitcoin network. So when that wallet registers itself, and I'm going to keep this very simple, but these numbers are very, very long and it's very complex. But let's just say that this goes out and gets an ID of ABC on the network, on the Bitcoin network. So down here is your Bitcoin network. So we'll just say this is the Bitcoin network. And this thing goes out and retrieves itself an ID of ABC. Now, when it gets ready to purchase the Bitcoin, what it's going to do is it is going to make a request to the Bitcoin network. And so the company that I'm working with, they actually have their own wallet, and it was registered a long time ago. And let's say that it has 1 million Bitcoin in it, and it's sitting up here, and let's say that its ID is CDC. So this wallet, when I go to make my purchase, they are going to take my dollar bill, they're going to convert it into whatever the current trade rate is on a Bitcoin. Right now it's almost $20,000. They're going to buy a Bitcoin or however much. And this is the other nice thing about Bitcoin and the difference between it and gold is, like the dollar bill originally was staked to gold, the value of gold, Bitcoin there's I think 22 million Bitcoins that can ever be mined. And don't worry about the whole mining thing. There's 22 million Bitcoins that can ever exist, but they can be divided into very, very small pieces. So where a dollar bill can only be divided into 100 pennies, a Bitcoin can be divided into many tiny little things. And so what it means is that I can own one Bitcoin, and it is right now equivalent to $20,000 USD. I can take a 0.00001 Bitcoin, and it might be a penny. So I can divide my Bitcoin up into an infinite number, not an infinite, but a very small amount to be able to trade that, which means that if you wanted to buy some Bitcoin just to protect yourself, you can literally buy $10 worth of Bitcoin. And then just build it up over time. But the point here is that when I buy this Bitcoin, they are going to take, let's say I buy $10. So they're going to take the $10 of Bitcoin or $10 USD, and I'm going to convert it into Bitcoin. And let's say it's 0.0001. And so they are going to take CDC. Down here it's going to say the CDC is transferring money to ABC, and it's going to be for $10, or let's say in this case it'd be 0.0001 Bitcoin. So the network then jumps through all of those little hoops. They talk to each other. They verify that the wallet CDC actually has 10 Bitcoin in it, or 10.0001 Bitcoin in it. It looks to make sure that ABC is a valid wallet on the network. It has been registered. And then it says it's okay, we're going to transfer that over to this one. So now this wallet holds 0.001 Bitcoin. And then this one ends up being minus 0.001 Bitcoin, because that's what we ended up transferring over to it, or from it. So what's happening here is the ledger itself is this Bitcoin network, and it's all mathematical and all controlled and all hack proof, and maintains it. And this thing's been up, I think, since 2009, so it's pretty stable as far as the way it works. But now I'm holding 0.001 Bitcoin, and that's basically the way these wallets work. So all a wallet is a piece of software. Right now, ABC is running on the exchange that I purchased the Bitcoin from. The problem with that, though, is I have no control over my money. This is kind of like having my money sitting in a bank and the bank gets hacked and somebody takes all the money out of the bank, or the bank gets robbed and they take all the money out of the bank. The problem is I don't really want my money sitting in that bank. I would like to hold my own money, and then if I later want to exchange it for dollar bills, I'll just transfer money back into that exchange and then have it converted back over to USD or whatever it is that I want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and I'm going to create my own wallet. Now, I can create a wallet on my computer. I could create a wallet on multiple computers. I can have as many different wallets as I want to have. And I can also have a hardware wallet. And a hardware wallet is nothing more, and this is not a hardware wallet, but it's nothing more than something like this. And I plug it into my computer. It usually has a screen on it that I would put in a code, and then I can use its address to transfer money to it. So a hardware wallet is the best type of wallet to have. A wallet on your computer, you do have some potential problems with it on your computer. You could also copy it onto a USB flash drive and keep it. But that's something we're going to end this video with, talking about the wallets themselves. So right now, I'm going to go and let's create one on the software on my computer. So it goes out and it creates a new hardware with an address of DCD. I go to my wallet and I tell it that I want to transfer money into my wallet. And what it does is it says, okay, well, I'm going to go talk to the network and I'm going to get you an address. And so it comes back and it gets XYZ is going to be the transaction address of what we are going to do. I am then going to go to the exchange and I'm going to enter my address that my wallet told me that it wanted to use. I'm going to enter that address and I'm going to tell it I want to remove 001 Bitcoin out of ABC, and I want to transfer it to whatever wallet is holding this transaction of XYZ. So it goes down to the network and it says, okay, who has XYZ? The network says that that's supposed to be wallet DCD. And so the transaction is then again verified on the network and it is transferred over to this wallet. So now this exchange billfold ends up having 0 Bitcoin in it. And then my wallet on my computer has 001 Bitcoin in it. Now, this goes on. I transfer more and more Bitcoin into my wallet. And then one day I realized, having this thing on my computer, what happens if my hard drive crashes? What happens if, whatever? Well, there's a couple things that happen when this wallet gets created. It creates a key that encrypts the digital media that's inside of that wallet. And those encryption keys, there's a private key and a public key. And the private key is extremely important that you maintain that key. Now, you can write it on a piece of paper and hold on to it that way. You could, put it in a safety deposit box. You can do all kinds of ways to back that thing up. But one of the things that happens when you build this wallet is it's seeded, and that's really an encryption thing. But let's just say that when it created this encryption key that it's going to use to protect your money, it creates a bunch of words, literal words like dog, fish, cat, whatever. It creates a series of words. Sometimes there's 12 words in a key. Sometimes there's 24 words in a key. It really just doesn't, it's dependent on the wallet that you're actually using. But it generates the key off of these words. Now, it tells you to write these words down, and the reason is because if you ever lose your wallet, let's say my hard drive crashes on my computer and my wallet is gone. I have no way, I don't know where, I can't get my money back because my wallet has disappeared. Well, the way that the wallet is actually created the Bitcoin network is holding on to the wallet ID when it got registered. So all we really need to be able to do is to regenerate that key so that we can identify ourselves with the network. And that means that I can go to a completely different computer, load that same wallet software on that computer, put in my words, and it will regenerate my keys that I need to register with the network. And so that wallet becomes a mimic of the original wallet. And then whatever the Bitcoin network knows was in the original wallet now becomes registered to this other computer. So these words that you're given when you create these hardware keys or software keys are very, very important to keep, and they are definitely not something you want to keep inside the computer. You want to write those down, put those in a safe place, and make sure you don't lose them. There are companies out there that sell metal pieces of metal that you can actually put little pieces in to put the keys in so that you don't lose them in a case of a fire or anything else. But you definitely want to make sure that those keys are protected, because if you lose those keys or those words, you'll never be able to build that key again, and that wallet could potentially get lost. Now, as long as you still have the wallet, you can always, if you lost let's say that you lose the keys or the words, and you're kind of panicked and you want to fix that. Well, you can open another wallet and then transfer the money, because the new wallet's going to give you a new set of keys, and then I can write those down and then transfer the money out of my old wallet over to the new wallet, and now I've kind of protected myself again. So losing the keys doesn't mean you lost your money, but losing your wallet and not having those keys is where you lose your money. So those words are very, very important, and you don't want to give those to anybody. So the Bitcoin network is registering your wallet. The Bitcoin network is what each wallet talks to the network to get these addresses to transfer this money back and forth. And that's kind of what protects all of your money and your investment, to make sure that you don't lose anything. Now, why is Bitcoin better than gold? In the original part of this video, I was talking about the fact that the government used to use gold to back all of this currency, and now it's not. So what we're trying to do at this point is we're trying to have some way to stake this money on something that is not going to be fluctuating at the whim of a bank. And so what we end up doing is, with Bitcoin, we only have 22 million Bitcoin. Now, with gold, I could go dig up gold in my backyard and put it in the market, and I've made the price of gold go down. So gold actually fluctuates based on the current reserve of what we have in gold. Where Bitcoin, we know there's never going to be more than 22 million. They can be divided up for however we want to divide them, but there will never be more than 22 million. And so it makes it a very, I won't say stable, because the market fluctuates like crazy right now, but eventually it will become a very stable monetary mechanism, because you are limited on how many of those that you can ever have. So right now is an awesome time to get into Bitcoin. You just have to get you a reserve, get you a wallet, and transfer the money around. So in the last example here this was my computer that I transferred this money to. I'm going to go out and get a hardware wallet, because I realized that my computer is kind of susceptible to being hacked. So I go buy me a hardware wallet for $50 or whatever it is. And now when I plug that hardware wallet in, it registers itself on. So this is my hardware wallet, and so it is something that is never connected to the internet, other than just for transferring this money back and forth. And then I'm going to again do another transaction, and maybe it gives me ZPY as its encryption code. I'm going to put it into the network. I'm going to register it with the network. I'm going to then come over to this wallet. I'm going to tell it I want to transfer the money out of this wallet over to this wallet via this ZPY code. And then that money this wallet will become 0, and then this wallet will become 001. So that's kind of at this point the way that you transfer money. Hopefully this was simple enough to understand exactly what Bitcoin is and how you actually work with it, and what those words are that you're getting when you actually build these wallets. And actually, I want to cover one more thing. I mentioned in the video, I was talking about the fact that if you lost your wallet, you could use the code, the numbers or the words that it gave you to restore your wallet. And I made mention that you could transfer the money from your old wallet to your new wallet. But I want to be clear about one thing. So the ledger itself is what holds the money. Your wallet actually technically is not holding any money. What your wallet is holding are the transactions that are being transmitted to that wallet across whatever network you're using, because you can use Bitcoin, you could use Bitcoin Cash. There's a lot of different currencies out there that you can actually use your wallet to transfer funds back and forth. But the network itself is what actually holds those funds. So as an example, let's say that I transmit $1 million worth of Bitcoins from company A into my account. And so my wallet is holding $1 million worth of Bitcoins. Well, and I wish it was, but what has really happened is if you looked at the network, the ledger, it would show you that wallet A transmitted $1 million Bitcoins to wallet B, and you would see that on the network itself. And then these wallets have IDs that identify them on the network. Well, that network is what's holding the transaction. It knows that transaction happened. And the mere act that I own the ID, I own the keys for the wallet that the $1 million was transferred into, is what gives me that money. So when my wallet goes out and checks the network, it knows what transactions were part of its identity or its encryption keys. And so it retrieves whatever it is on the network that existed. Now, when I lose that wallet, the money doesn't disappear. It's not like I'm going to lose the wallet and therefore the wallet itself has destroyed the money. Think about it like a safe. If somebody comes in and steals my safe, they're going to get whatever's in the wallet that or in the safe. That money is gone. Where a wallet in this situation isn't the sole responsible party for holding on to those for that amount of money. The network is what's holding it. The ledger is what's holding it. And so when I lose my wallet and I go to another computer and I use my words to rebuild a wallet, well, that new wallet becomes the thing that is identifying the network as owning whatever transactions that ID corresponded with. And so the money that was on computer A that has crashed and gone away is now relinked, if you will, to the new wallet that we just rebuilt. So I just want to be clear that you don't think that the money itself is actually purely on that computer and therefore, or on that hardware key. And if I lose the hardware key, I'm screwed and all my money's gone. It's not like that. In fact, someone could come in and steal your safe out of your house that you were storing your key in, and as long as you still have those words, you're able to go rebuild and relink the earlier wallet, the one that was in the safe. You're able to relink it to a new computer, transfer the fund, or you're not transferring again, you're relinking it to that. But then you would transfer the funds out of that wallet and into yet another new wallet. And now I have protected myself from being able to be discovered. To be clear, let's say that you have a hardware key and you store that hardware key in your safe. And in that same safe, we store a little book that has our words in it. Well, now the person that stole the safe could use your words to rebuild their own wallet. And now they are the ones that own the funds with their own key that they built when they built that new wallet. And now they can transfer the funds out of your restored wallet into their wallet and take over those funds completely. So this is why you don't really want to store the wallet and the codes together, because if someone gets both of them, then even though they don't know your secret code to log into your hardware key, they do know your secret words, and therefore they can build a duplicate wallet to take control of your funds and then transfer wherever they would like, to move those funds in the future. So hopefully that's a good enough explanation to at least get you started learning what Bitcoin is and how this overall system works. This was a very basic coverage of the process, but hopefully it'll help explain some of the more complicated parts of it.